order levels. So this is a way to try to address that. So this is something I noticed when I taught third grade 2 years ago. All my kids were on grade level, but still only about 60% of my class was proficient on the PSSAs. And I think a huge issue with that is that they're not actively reading. Like you were saying, Miss Roy, they get nervous, they read, and then they see the questions, and they have no idea what they read. So this is a strategy to try to teach them to what they should be doing when they're reading. The other great thing about Question the Author is it addresses pretty much every single Common Core standard for literature and for information. The one that I think it does the best is with author's craft and structure. So Infantis and Pinnell, you know how they always have that section in the higher levels, is that about the text? My kids always do that on that, like why did the author include this heading? And they're always confused, and this Question the Author really helps them explain like how is the author conveying their information? What extra things do they give you? Do they add similes? Do they give you rhyme? Do they give you repetition? And it really focuses on the author's craft. And again, I'm such a fan of that because it's making the connection with reading and writing. This is another one, the range of reading and text complexity for the Common Core standards. Like a lot of our kids are below grade level. So in guided reading, we're reading books on their level, which is great, and that's where their instruction needs to happen. But every kid needs to be exposed to on-grade level text as well. And Question the Author can be done with a variety of formats. So you can do it with kids at their frustration level, independent or instructional, so they'll be meeting that standard. So the steps to implementation, I also put it in your guys' packet. Feel free to jot down anything you want to. It's right after the last do now question. Julie, I think you're just on it. So steps to ensure, the first thing is you have to choose a motivating text. So this is not something to use with like a boring like test prep passage that you're not feeling good about. This is something that's supposed to be really engaging and motivating. And again, like I said before, it doesn't necessarily have to be at their instructional level. You could do this with their independent or frustration. You just have to change how the book's presented. So for example, you could have a kid listen in the listening center and then engage in this strategy. You could do a shared reading with it and talk about it, or independently read. There's a lot of ways. The really important thing is that you need to pre-plan questions and stopping points so that you're not just opening up a book. And finally, you want to ensure that questions are higher order and they focus on the author, because if you're asking low-level questions, you're going to get low-level answers. And then you really want to encourage peers to discuss. And again, what you were saying, Sam, is finding that text evidence and really looking at what the author did. So some questions, like the key to quality discussion and higher thinking is to have higher order questions. So some examples, and again, if you flip to the next page, I put these like in big font on a page for you guys to keep in mind if you're planning guided reading or whatever. It says, does this make sense to you? What is the author trying to say here? Why did the author choose this particular word or phrase? How does this word or picture help us as readers? Why do you think the author told us this now? How did the author let you know things have changed? How did the author show blank? And I don't know if this was going through your head, but I've been using this a lot this week for poetry. It's really great. So what is the author trying to say here? When they have things that aren't really explicit, you kind of have to think into it. Also, author word choice. Why are they using similes? How did the author show blank is a great way to incorporate the moral, the message, the theme. So basically, I'm going to share how I've used Question the Authors. Like I said, I learned about this strategy in grad school, and I wanted to kind of try it out with my high group before I kind of moved on to my lower students. And so one of the things when you're deciding if you want to use Question the Author, you have to decide, is this going to fit my purpose? If you want to focus on higher order comprehension and active reading strategies, it's a great solution. So this group is all kids that are reading above grade level. They're on like F&P and OP. But I noticed that even though technically that's what they can decode, they're not thinking at that level. And I tried everything. I tried literature circles. I would have them read a page. We'd talk about it. I would give them tasks to do at their seat. They wouldn't do them. They would skip over key details. So I was trying to think of a way to really hold them accountable for their comprehension while doing it. And one second, just check this. There we go. That's going to be a little scary when my head pops up. Sorry. So one of the, really creepy, sorry to the people watching. So I decided to work on question the author for the students to have specific stopping points so they're monitoring their comprehension and really looking at the author's craft. Because these same four students are really not that strong of writers. And a lot of it's because they just write things very nice handwriting, capital letters, periods, but there's not detail. So I wanted them to really look at the author's craft. They also were able to learn vocabulary and practice listening skills. There was designated stopping points. So the first few times we did it as a class and we discussed it. We looked for text evidence, and then eventually they would go read the book by themselves, and they would have a question sheet, and they would actually write down their responses, because this is a really great article. It's a giant meta-analysis of hundreds of studies, and just overwhelming research shows that when you write, it improves your comprehension, and vice versa. When you read, it improves your writing. So again, making that connection between the two. So these were just some questions that I did from the Littles. So basically, did you guys read the Littles as kids? Okay, I did. This is old school. But basically, they're these little people that live in a big house, so they're like 3 inches. And the author does a really great job in describing what is life like from the point of view of someone who's little. And again, we go back to what question the author, you need a motivating text. And the kids love this. So again, I have the actual page numbers, and this is exactly what it looks like on the kid sheet. So they have this and then lines to write their response. So it says, how does the author show the dark woods are dangerous? So they know while they're reading they need to stop at 53 and answer that. And again, if you can see the book, they have, the dark woods are very black and kind of gloomy and much different than the other ones. So the author never says they're dangerous, but the author gives a lot of hints, with their pictures, people getting frantic when they come to them. So the idea is that these questions, the answer's not exactly there, they need to make an inference. How does the author show the littles are creative and resourceful? So again, I'm trying to introduce vocabulary to them. Resourceful is a word they hadn't heard of before through the questions. And technically, the author doesn't say the littles are creative. But what they do in the book is they find a little sardine can and they use it as a boat. And then earlier in the book, they find a turtle and tie a rope on them, and he drags them with the motor on their boat. So looking for that evidence to answer that. Also, how does the author show the tinies have a nice life? What does the author mean by it's raining cats and dogs? Why would the author use that expression? So again, trying to really go back to the author's craft. Why does an author use similes? How is that beneficial? So just a quick talking point for you guys. What makes these effective questions? Why do you think that these would provoke a discussion in kids?
They would have to go back in the text and cite evidence. And it looks like they're interesting questions.
Yeah, the answer's not obvious. I think that's the biggest thing. Is